Do you need pretty privilege to get in a relationship or get married? Let's find out in this video. Hey guys, my name is Jumoke Edwin, and I'm the co-founder of One at Love. My husband and I, we help Christian women partner their faith with strategy. So if this sounds like something you'd be interested in, make sure that you do like, subscribe, and you hit that bell so that you can continue to get more great content. Let's jump into this video real quick. So if you haven't heard, or if you haven't heard about, there's this video that actually it's an update video of a viral video from like 4 or 5 years ago, and it's by a creator called Ostefco. So I will link the video in the description so you can go check it out yourself. But her original video was talking about, I don't have pretty privilege and that kind of sucks, and it got people talking about pretty privilege. Is that a real thing? It was just a lot of things happening. And she said 4 years later, she was right. She does not have pretty privilege. She took people's advice. She leveled up. She did her makeup. She went out more. And she still does not have the results that she wanted as far as dating, getting married. She's 40 and she has just put that dream to rest. Now, I have only 3 thoughts about this, but if you don't want to end up in the same way, listen up. So the first thought that I want to talk about is that there's a difference between pretty privilege and marriageability, which she touched on it, but I want to overemphasize that you don't need to have pretty privilege to get married or to marry a good man, to be in a relationship. None of that. Now, does it help? Sure, it helps, but it's not the defining factor at the end of the day, because as I'm listening to what she's talking about in her video, it seems as if pretty privilege is attaining resources from benefactors, men, attention, XYZ, which if we're putting women on a hierarchy, that's really only the top % of women. Most women are average and they don't have that same type of experience that she may have thought she could obtain. Is it largely dependent on genetics? Yes. However, you don't need to be 8, 9, or 10, right? As far as how men are ranking women to secure marriage or relationship, you really don't. And you can be an average-looking woman, get with an average man, and move on with your life. That brings me to my next point. And you have to be properly positioned in order to receive the type of outcome that you want from men. And properly positioned is 2 things mainly. One is physically. Now, it's admirable, right? That it's admirable that with her, she was able to really work on her makeup. She worked on her digital branding, and she wore the hair, the weave, the makeup, all that good stuff. However, this is the elephant in the room. She did not work on her weight, right? Her weight stayed the same. And in the Black community, she might be considered a little, thick, but it just depends on your demographic. What type of man do you want? And this is something that we don't talk about enough as women, because it's very hush-hush. Things are gate kept, and we're seeing what we're seeing, but then we're not connecting it with our own lives. And it's always been like this, but it's just been more highlighted, especially in recent years, that the higher up you go as far as the type of man that you want, right? Not the men who want you. The men who want you are your level. But if you want a certain type of man who is very attractive and or very successful, has a lot of money, resources, finances, and status, since they have more leverage, they can be more choosy. Usually men who are higher up as far as the pecking order of men, they usually have a more strict weight preference. And she did not address that thing. And she said she lived in LA, then she moved to Houston. She got more attention in Houston, which again, the men in Houston probably were closer to her target demographic, but in LA, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe the men there, they're used to BBLs and they're used to, I don't know, light skinned Latino women. I have no idea. But ultimately, they're used to a different aesthetic. They're used to a different standard of beauty, right? Versus, I mean, she could, if she's positioned, let's say somewhere in sub Saharan Africa, that the men there, they value a woman who has some meat on her bones. She probably would get better results, right? So you have to be aware of your positioning as a woman. What type of man do I want, and what type of man am I currently attracting with who I am today, right? That has to be very clear. Sometimes it's even how you show up mentally. Some women, they don't show up in a way that positions them as wives. It positions them as girlfriends. And shameless plug, we do have a single to wifey boot camp. Make sure you click the link in the description so that you can get access to our 3-day boot camp, especially the module when I talked about girlfriend versus wife. I break it down really well. So go check it out if you choose to. But physically is a big thing. And she says she did the makeup, she did all that, but she did the one thing that was actually going to position her, at least put her through the door of pretty privilege, which is weight. And we don't talk about that enough. Like, weight does supersede weight. Like, skinny privilege supersedes pretty privilege. Simply because pretty privilege is highly dependent on men. And if Western men are more attracted to women who are slim or fit, and you are not slim or fit, or not even just Western men, but just the location that you're in, those type of men have that type of standard. It doesn't make sense. Someone like me who's really skinny, trust me, when I'm around Nigerians, growing up, they've always told me, oh, you need to eat more, you need to put on weight, you need to do this. But when I got around people of a different socioeconomic class, they loved the fact that I was slim, right? But if I went back to Nigeria, if I was born and raised in Nigeria and I stayed in Nigeria my whole life and I stayed slim, I probably would have a lot of difficulty there because I'm not their ideal aesthetic. You understand, right? Another thing is like locationally, where are you located? Some women, not all women, may have to move in order to have better results when it comes to marriage. And I know we got some flack on that a couple years ago, and people were indirectly saying that we're not hustling for marriage, and they thought it was so crazy that I suggested or implied that, hey, if you're a woman, you might have to move. Not all women, but if you are in a location that doesn't have your same values, perhaps you're more traditional and you're in a highly liberal area, well, to find a man who's traditional might be like finding a needle in a haystack. If you have a specific denomination that your area, there's nothing there, right? Well, if you live in Wyoming, if you live in Antarctica, well, if you're looking for a black man in China, well, right? You have to be socially aware in order to attain whatever pretty privilege is available in that location. And lastly, last point, the big elephant in the room, and this is the reason why women like Steph Co. and some of you who are even watching this is the reason why you're going to stay single. And we tell this to our clients, we tell this to other women to help them understand. The reason that you're going to stay single is because women only want attention from a very particular man. It's not that women want marriage, because even Christian women, when they're praying to God for marriage or a husband, there's like a silent part and an assumed part in their prayers and in what they want and in their expectations that they're not saying out loud. They're not telling it to people. They're not being honest with themselves. Is that they want a very specific outcome. They want a very specific man who will give them attention and status. That's what women want. They don't necessarily want marriage to any man. Even if he's a great man, it doesn't matter if he's not attractive enough, if he's not tall enough, if he's not making enough money, if he doesn't have this type of education, if he doesn't have this, if he comes from this class background, if he has this past. Women want a very specific and just a very niche type of man. And if all women, let me not say all, but majority of women want really 20% of men, then it's going to seem like, hey, where are all the men? Or, oh my gosh, woe is me. I don't have pretty privilege and whatever, whatever. But you don't realize that by every woman or most women wanting the same top tier man, and no woman is really doing their homework. They're not doing their research. They're not doing their homework. They're not being strategic about the type of man that they're actually looking for. Because if your dating pool, if you start to compound everything that you want, man who's making this much, who's tall, who's handsome, who's this, who's this, who's this, and you have a pool of only 5 eligible men in your area, once you exhaust those options, that's it. That's it. That is it. That's why we tell our women in our program, we live in a fallen world. You have 2 options to get to the altar, realistic options. A, you can accept the men who already want you. They may not be as attractive as you thought. They may not be as tall. They may not be making as much as you thought. There might be a preference or two that you have to settle on, right? But they already like you. They like you. They want you. They're in your DMs. They're taking you out. They want to take you out. They may not be the top tier man, but they are more than likely a candidate that would marry you. You can accept them, which we encourage a lot of women to do, go for that route, or B, you can level up. And for her, she leveled up with everything but weight. But if the type of man that you're looking for is looking for a woman that has pretty privilege, and you didn't address your weight, you didn't lose any weight, right? You're not the aesthetic that they're looking for, then you stay single. You can't just stay the same and not conform, but you want a certain outcome. So that is my reaction. Again, some people might be upset at what I'm saying. Don't shoot the messenger. At the end of the day, I don't really care. I'm married. I'm happily married. But I always tell women, don't try to fight a system that you want to benefit from. Marriage, relationships is patriarchal, right? Men hold the power to who gets married and who gets commitment. And if you want commitment from a certain type of man, and that man is not in high demand, then he has more leverage than you. And if he has more leverage than you, that means that he has more options, and you have to position yourself as the best option so he picks you. Reality. I know you wish that there was the same amount of high value man for every woman who wants one, but that's just not the case. But anyways, I hope that this video was insightful. Let me know what your comments are. If you watched the video, let me know what your thoughts were about it in the comments below, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.